Americans go to the polls today to elect a new president, and the contest is between Vice President Kamala Harris and former President Donald Trump. The first vote of the day have been cast in the small New Hampshire community of Dixville Notch. Polls are also expected to open in Virginia, North Carolina, and other areas soon. We have details in this report.
It's decision day in the United States of America. Americans are heading to the polls to vote for their next president. Vice President Kamala Harris and former President Donald Trump each need at least 270 electoral votes to win. The battleground states of Arizona, Georgia, Michigan, Nevada, North Carolina, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin are expected to be pivotal to their path to victory. Harris and Trump tied with 3 votes each in the tiny New Hampshire community of Dixville Notch, which opened and closed its poll just after midnight ET in a decades-old tradition. The candidates held their final campaign event in battleground states last night. Kamala Harris ended a 107-day campaign in Pittsburgh and Pennsylvania, calling on voters to exercise their rights.
Because we need everyone to vote Pennsylvania. You will make the difference in this election. So one last time, Pittsburgh, I ask you, are you ready to make your voices heard? Do we believe in opportunity? Do we believe in the promise of America? And are we ready to fight for it?
Donald Trump spoke in North Carolina, Michigan, and Pittsburgh, where he ended 3 of his presidential campaigns.
She tried to get stars to come in, and they wouldn't do it, actually. She'd go and get Beyonce. No. But you always put the star, she should have learned this from Crooked Hillary, always put the star after you. That way the people stay. They obviously forgot to get a star tonight, but we don't need a star.
Talking security, Brigadier General Patrick Ryder says the Department of Defense stands prepared to support state and local authorities on Election Day.
Of note, Secretary Austin approved a request last week from the District of Columbia for D.C. National Guard troops to support the D.C. Fire and Emergency Medical Services from November 5 through 13.
With millions of American citizens headed to the polls, and some others who had voted before Election Day, the question to be answered is, who becomes the next president of the United States of America?
To win the U.S. presidential election, each candidate needs at least 270 votes from the Electoral College. Voters today are technically casting ballots for electors who will in turn cast the actual vote for president and vice president on the 17th of December. The Electoral College is comprised of 538 electors who represent all 50 states and the District of Columbia. Each state has between 3 and 54 electoral votes. After the general election, electors meet in their respective states to cast a separate ballot for president and vice president. The Electoral College results are counted and certified by a joint session of Congress on the 6th of January. Joining me to discuss the U.S. election is a journalist, Habib Aruna. Thank you for joining us on the news at 1. Now, this is an election that is, sort of has an influence on the brand of the United States in terms of democracy. And if this goes the way, it will be an issue, especially for other nations that look up to them. But looking at the 2 parties, the major candidates, they're signing out votes yesterday. What do you think America needs the most?
I wouldn't know. I'm a Nigerian, and I'm one casual observer of the U.S. election, U.S. democracy and elections, and its history. The world is focused on the U.S. election because America is the most important country in the world. American democracy is the longest. American democracy was founded since 1776, Philadelphia, and it has become a brand, a brand that has been recorded. Even though they have their challenges, but it has been a brand that the whole world envied. The whole world structured their constitutions in line with the U.S. Constitution, including Nigeria. So we are focused on what is going on. But the two candidates, Vice President Kamala Harris, former President Donald Trump, they have different way of looking at the future. A Trump presidency will not favor Nigeria or Africa.
Why do you say that?
Because look at the first time in office, 4 years in office, he never bought that at all. To him, we're inconsequential. It don't matter. He focused his attention in Europe, on the Middle East. So we never mattered. But an Harris presidency will be beneficial to Africa and particularly the black race. So most Nigerians, and by extension most Africans, will be praying and hoping for Harris to win the election.
Most especially on what you just mentioned, so many persons are to an extent tilting towards a candidate because of the immigration policies that Trump may likely put in place if he is elected. But let's talk about the debate about the Electoral College and how some persons say it has outlived its importance in that sense, and that the U.S. can actually practice an election or a voting system like other advanced nations where the vote alone reflects, the interest of the people. What do you say?
Don't make that mistake. The Electoral College does not remove anything from U.S. democracy.
Right. That
is, when you vote, that people decide who preside over their affairs, who manage their resources. In other words, it's one man, one vote. But the founding fathers of America decided to be pragmatic enough to not realize that every state in the Commonwealth, in the Commonwealth is very important. So that is why the Constitution assigned electoral votes to each of the states. So if you win the state, if you win the state, you take over the electoral votes. There are some votes that are very, very well. For example, we have California, which is a blue state. We have Florida, which is a red state. We have New York, a blue state. We have Texas, a red state. So, but there are some states that are not particularly tilted towards the red or blue states. That's what they call them, the swing states, the battleground states. So these states decide the elections. And that is why most of the candidates, if you notice, they were campaigning almost every day in Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania has 80 electoral votes. So the part 270 likely to pass through Pennsylvania because of the 18 votes that state has. So it's a democracy. And that is what makes the U.S. system very interesting. People are saying it's outdated, it's no longer relevant, no longer important. But the fact is that its uniqueness is what is making people to say, okay, let's allow it to play on for now. Because it does not affect the real root of the democratic process. It indeed enhances people to know that these small states are very, very key and important. Even if you are in Pennsylvania, there is a particular county that you must win to win that state. You must win, and you must also win Philadelphia, an equally important urban city. So it's very interesting. But if you look at the various two political candidates, Harris believed that you must tax the rich to help the poor. He believed that immigration, yes, should be tightened. But at the same time, there should be more flexibility in the way it is done. And he also believes that abortion is a major issue. It's a major issue in U.S. politics now. And that is why you have women coming out in droves.
In support of that, very quickly because of our time, another issue is voter enthusiasm this time around and some of the demographic changes, especially in some of the swing states and how they will affect the election. But we see the former Republican lawmaker, Liz Cheney, talking about Trump and a possibility of him melting down if he does not win this election. Over the past few days, we've seen Trump also trying to, raise doubt about the electoral process and all that. What do you think will happen if Trump decides to come out and declare himself?
I wrote a piece yesterday that the threat to American democracy is very evident and visible. It's very glaring that if care is not taken, America is in crisis. Because of the tone, because of the language, because of the posture of Donald Trump. Before the emergence of Donald Trump, this thing has been very, very easy. It's been a very smooth transmission between the various parties, between the process. The process itself is always very transparent. But the emergence of Trump have seen the system being compromised, at times manipulated. And the way the man speaks, the way he speaks is not too good for the country's democracy. In the last one, don't forget, there was a crisis. There was an insurrection at the Capitol that this man caused. He told his supporters to march to the Capitol. This time around, the rhetoric, what he has been saying, is not helping the system at all. So people are afraid. And there's apprehension everywhere that this man may not accept defeat if eventually this woman defeat him.
Well, to add to that, there are also no other convictions that were in place right before the election and all that. But all eyes on America. We're waiting to see, that the best man actually wins this election. We're staying on this throughout, at least till the election result is announced. Thank you for joining us on the News at 1. Habib Aruna is a journalist. Thank you for joining us once again.